Sheila Burma. She is a postdoc in TIFR Bangalore. So she'll be speaking on short bound for Steklov eigenvalues on star-shaped domain. So Sheila, you should finish your talk within 15 minutes. Okay. I think the organizer have said to you. Okay, so you can start your talk.
Okay. I'll basically talk about some lower bounds of Steklov eigenvalues. So before coming to the results, I'll just give some brief intro of such problems. So these problems started from daily life applications. So like if you take any musical instrument, like if you take guitar or if you take drums. So in guitar, we have different strings of different widths, and they also sound differently. Similarly, if we take the example of drums, so if we take drums of different widths, they also sound differently. So this somehow suggests that we have some relation between the shape and the sound that shape produced. So if we go mathematically, so actually these the sound that comes to us as a frequency, they are nothing but the eigenvalues of the Laplacian if we consider the Laplace operator on that domain. And so this suggests that if we consider Laplace operator on a manifold, then if we find out the eigenvalues of that operator, then these eigenvalues have some information about the geometry of that manifold. So the question was that if we know all the eigenvalues of Laplace operator on some particular manifold, can we reconstruct the manifold by knowing those eigenvalues? So this question got famous after an article by Mark Keck, the title of that article was "Can One Hear the Shape of a Drum?" So the purpose of this article was basically to ask the question that how much information these eigenvalues have about the shape of the domain. So at the end of this article, he basically proved that if we know all the Laplace eigenvalues of a manifold, then we can recover the genus of that manifold. After that, there was a lot of research, not only on the eigenvalues of Laplace operator, but on different other eigenvalues problems like Dirichlet eigenvalue problem, Neumann and Steklov, Robin and Mix and so on. So today I'll talk about this Steklov eigenvalue problem. So we'll start with a compact connected orientable Riemannian manifold with matrix G. And if we take any bounded domain with a smooth boundary and we'll denote by nu, that by nu the outward unit normal to boundary of omega, then if we take any smooth function phi on C2 of omega, then the Laplace operator on this omega is defined by minus divergence of gradient of var phi. Then the Steklov problem is to find all real numbers nu such that there exists a non-trivial function, phi, which is in C2 of omega intersection C1 of omega closure, such that this function var phi is harmonic in omega and the outer normal derivative of this var phi is equal to mu of phi on boundary of omega. So this problem was introduced by Steklov in 1902, and the motivation came from physics, where this function var phi represents the temperature, and the problem is stated as we want a steady state temperature in omega such that on the boundary this del phi by del mu, this is the flux on the boundary, this is directly proportional to the temperature on the boundary of omega. This problem can also be think of as the vibrations of the free membrane where all its mass is concentrated along the boundary. Now this problem is also important because the eigenvalues of Steklov problem is same as the eigenvalues of Dirichlet to Neumann operator, where this operator is defined from C infinity boundary of omega to C infinity boundary of omega, where this we take a function var phi and take its harmonic extension, this take its harmonic extension on whole omega and take its outer normal derivative again on the boundary. So this function var phi is mapped to del var phi over del mu, and the corresponding eigenfunctions, they form an orthonormal basis of L2 boundary of omega. Then next, the eigenvalues of this problem. So the eigenvalue of Steklov problem, they form a discrete sequence, and this sequence is increasing, and the first Steklov eigenvalue is equal to 0, and all other eigenvalues are strictly positive since we are taking our manifold to be connected here. and the eigenfunction corresponding to this zero eigenvalue is the constant function. Next is the variational characterization of these eigenvalues. This is important because mostly we use such type of variational characterization to find the bounds for these eigenvalues. So for any L from 0, 1, 2 and so on, this mu L of omega is equal to supremum over set E, where E is a set of L functions from H1 of omega, and then we take the infimum over this expression, this Rayleigh quotient expression of var phi, where phi comes from E perp, where E perp is set of all functions var phi which are perpendicular to these phi i's over boundary of omega. So we will use this variational characterization to prove the bound for the eigenvalues. Next, here are some examples. So if we take any unit disk in R2, then the Stickler eigenvalues are 0, 1, 2 and so on. And the multiplicity of 0 eigenvalue is 1 and all other eigenvalues have multiplicity 2. And if we'll take unit ball in Rn, then eigenvalues are 0, 1, 2 and so on. And the multiplicity of eigenvalues k greater than or equal to 1 is given by this expression. Next, so this is the first result about the Stickler eigenvalues, which was given by Weierstrass. So this bound is of isoperimetric type. By saying isoperimetric type, I mean that we will fix some geometric constants like where perimeter or volume or say area or diameter, and we will consider all the domains under that geometric constants. So Weierstrass took that constants as perimeter, so he considered all the domains in R2 which were simply connected and they were of fixed perimeter, and he proved that among such domains, disk maximizes the first non-zero Stickler eigenvalue. Later, Hirsch and Payne, they observed that if we use the idea of Weierstrass and take the same assumptions, even we have more stronger result, which is the harmonic mean of first two non-zero Stickler eigenvalues, and they are bounded below by perimeter of omega divided by pi. If we'll take our omega to be the ball, actually this bound is sharp and equality holds. So then next result is about this star-shaped domain in R2. So this result was given by Cutler and Sigilletto, and he took a star-shaped bounded domain in R2 with a smooth boundary and which was centered at the origin. Then for k between 1 to infinity, he proved this sharp lower bound. I think there's some problem with my video. I can't add into this. I will just take one more minute and I will just reshare this. So here this r theta. So since we have star-shaped domains in every direction theta, we will have a point on the boundary, and that distance is actually given by this r theta. And if we take omega to be the ball, then this bound is again sharp. So the next question is, what about if we consider this problem on higher dimension? So this means if we consider this problem in Rn, then these are some notations. So this theta q, this is the angle between the radial direction and normal direction at any point on the boundary, and this ru is the distance in the direction u, the distance from the center to the boundary point, and this alpha will take the maximum of this theta q, and a is the tan square of alpha. Then with these notations, Garcia and Montano, they proved the similar result for the star-shaped bounded domain with a smooth boundary in Rn. Now basically they actually compared this mu1 of omega with mu1 of a ball of radius 1. So yeah. So then next is if whether we can generalize this result to more general manifold. So for starting, just like say for space forms, like for constant curvature space. So yes, so we considered this problem for the sphere, and under the same conditions, here again RU is nothing but that is in any direction u, the distance between the center and the boundary point, and alpha is the maximum of theta q and a is the tan square of alpha. Then, but here the problem is we don't know the eigenvalues on the unit ball like Rn. So here we compared the first non-zero state law eigenvalue on omega with the first non-zero state law eigenvalue of Brm. What is this Rm? Rm is the radius of the ball centered with the same center as omega and lies inside the omega. And we were able to prove the similar result as we had for this Rn. And just the thing which has changed is just the Jacobi field, because the Jacobi field in Rn is given by R, and for a sphere we have the Jacobi field given by sine of R. Next question is, what about the negative curvature? This is for hyperbolic space. So sadly we don't have such result for hyperbolic space, because unlike in this sphere we have this Jacobi field is sine R, and we satisfy this condition sine ax is greater than or equal to a sine x for a between 0 and 1, and sine ax is less than or equal to a sine x if a is greater than or equal to 1. But for sine hyperbolic we have reverse inequality, so this result is not true. Next is what about the hypersurface of revolution? So for paraboloid we have the similar result. So we thought of writing it for general hypersurface of revolution. So we will take a hypersurface of revolution with matrix dr square plus h square r gsn minus 1, where we have some assumption on h, h0 is 0 and h prime 0 equal to 1. These conditions we are taking for the smoothness of the domain. And we have to take some more additional condition on h, which is h is an increasing function of r and hr by r is an decreasing function of r. Then we will again define the this a as we defined previously, and with these assumptions we have similar result even for the hypersurface of revolution. Now I'll just give the brief proof of this result. So here again we are comparing this mu L of omega. Yeah, here one more thing, we were actually able to prove this result for all strict law eigenvalues. So to do this, we firstly took a function f which is continuously differentiable and defined on omega closure, and we actually find out the relation between this Rayleigh quotient over omega and the Rayleigh quotient over Brm, which is integral over omega grad f of square divided by integral over boundary of omega f square, and this relates the similar expression over b of Rn. Then we choose the function phi I such that this phi I s to the power n minus 2 Ru, and this is square root of h square of Ru plus del bar of Ru square. This is the ith strict law eigenfunction on Brm. And why we are taking this function is because we want to construct the test function on boundary of omega. So if we'll take any var phi such that integral over boundary of Brm var phi with this function is equal to 0, then actually this var phi will be perpendicular to phi I over the boundary of omega. Now we will go to the variational characterization and we will use this to prove the result. So we will take our E to be phi naught phi 1 phi L minus 1. This is the set of L functions. Now if you'll recall, this mu L of omega was supremum over E. So since we have removed that supremum over E, this mu L of omega is greater than or equal to infimum of this quantity. Now since we have the relation of this Rayleigh quotient over omega and the relation over ball of Brm, we'll just write down that expression, and now we'll just concentrate on this expression in this bracket, which is infimum over non-zero phi, where infimum over this non-zero var phi, where this var phi is perpendicular to all previous L minus 1 eigenfunctions over Brm. So this expression in this bracket is nothing but this Lth non-zero strict law eigenvalue of B of Rn, and we get the desired result. So Yeah, this is for all. Yes, thank you.
So thank you, Sila, for the nice talk.